brothers, sisters, and others of all colors. Welcome back to another YouTube video. This time. I don't know why it's so much brighter. I actually think, yeah, it makes sense. Because, it's like tens of thousands of lumens. Like, outdoors is like crazy bright. And you never really recognize it. I don't know why it feels brighter, or why it feels like adequately bright in a room with like 1,000, and 1,000, fucking, what is it, lumen light bulb or whatever. Um, but yeah, like the inside of this room is not nearly as bright as the outside, because like the sun just in the daytime is like 40,000. At night it's like 10,000. It's, but I that begs another question. Why is it so bright? Or why isn't it so bright when it's like midnight? Bars. Anyways, that actually has nothing to do with today's video. This time. Um, I wanted to talk about the law of attraction, alright, and information theory, the next part in this series. So last time we talked about the nature of information. What is it, right? It's just a thing that points to a thing, right? And right, it's like, hey, this is this thing. You can put information inside of other pieces of information, and when you connect two pieces of information, right, A and B are separate, but AB is also separate from A and B, right? Because AB doesn't exist without A, or AB doesn't exist without B, and AB doesn't exist without A, right? It's both at the same time. This is important to understand, because a lot of the times, like, when you have an attachment, when you attach A to B unconsciously, what happens is you think AB is like all there is. You don't see A and B, you just see AB. And then you wonder why A and B, or you wonder why there's issues with A and B, because you don't see A and B, you only see AB, right? So, what the hell am I talking about? Let's bring this back to reality, snap back to reality, alright? Let's take my favorite example, rejection, right? A is the idea that you like and you want to present, right? And B uh, is somebody else rejecting that, or when you see that somebody else has rejected that idea, right? Because maybe they didn't even reject the idea themselves, they just appeared to reject it. And then they're just confused as to why you're upset about the situation, right? It could be anything, really. So this is why I speak with these terms, because it allows you to create insights from situations that otherwise you would genuinely believe that that situation, uh, uh, that they had rejected you in that situation, even though that might not necessarily be what happened. It's just that at the time you perceived it to be that way, right? And maybe just by looking back at that situation, that can. But yeah, that's the importance of that. But anyways, right? So you have like the idea that you like, and then you have the other person like rejecting that idea, but then also you have like you, right? You are not the idea that you like. You are not somebody else reject, or you're not them rejecting the idea. You are just you. Your perception of them rejecting the idea is just the perception of them rejecting the idea. And the idea that they're rejecting is just the idea that you created, right? Three separate things. But if you combine all three of these things together instantly in your mind, suddenly this person isn't, they can't, or they aren't rejecting your idea in a moment. They're rejecting you entirely and everything about you. And it's the worst thing in the world, okay? My second favorite example so far is desire, right? Desire is you have a fantasy that you appreciate, fantasy, right? I am imagining myself playing a video game, okay? I'm imagining myself playing a video game and having fun playing that video game. I'm imagining myself making that video game and having fun making that video game, right? See? Fantasy. Second thing is the reality of that, right? Am I making a video game right now? No, I'm making a video. Different thing, right? So, but if you combine these two things together, right, you get AB. You're stuck in the process of trying to bring those things about without recognizing the two components that created that thing, right? So a lot of times with desire, because you aren't adjusting to A or B and you think that A and B are the same thing, uh, you don't see it when your fantasy doesn't, or when seeing that fantasy being real doesn't make you actually happy. So you thought you were supposed to find happiness there, and you're focusing on the lack of happiness because you think that A and B are the same thing. You think that uh, is the fantasy being reality is supposed to make you happy. Okay, you think that's supposed to be how it works, but just because a fantasy makes you happy doesn't mean that reality is going to make you happy. Okay, separate things. And this applies to a lot of things. This is like, a lot of problems can be described this way. Um, I guess we're not talking about transposition. We're just going to talk more about the combination of information, or I guess more information mechanics. Um, right? So you see A and B, right? A and B. That's like the fantasy and the desire, but you see them as the same thing. So what happens is because you see them as the same thing, like not just actually there's another one. It wasn't just the being confused about why you aren't happy and focusing on the lack of happiness and therefore feeling empty. The next thing after you see the lack of happiness and therefore feel empty after that um, is that you often find yourself unmotivated or directionless. Why? Because the direction, the fantasy, is tied in with the reality. You can only fantasize about the things that are in front of you, but the fantasy isn't in front of you, it's in your mind. And you don't even get to practice this skill, so it just grows dormant and it grows weaker. So you have to practice. Now you have no practice in a skill that is necessary for getting you from point A to point B because it actually defines point B. Or point one to point two. There we go. But you understand what I'm trying. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So this is the combination of information, right? And a lot of times what blocks the law of attraction is because combination of information. It's a combination of two things that aren't two things, right? A and B are two different things. AB is different from A and B, even though it is comprised of both A and B. Very important to consider. So you have three things there: A, B, A, B, right? And you can go way, 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 way deeper with this, right? You can connect all kinds of different things. Like let's say you have thing C, right? Well, what about the connection between A, B, or A and B, or A and A, B, and C, right? Like time. Let's say C is time, right? Well, what you wanted and time, what's the relationship between what you wanted, the process of getting that, right? Your mental map for moving from the fantasy to reality over time. How has that changed, right? That's A, and that's the relationship of A and B with C. That's a new thing. It's a new thing now. And I'm pretty sure that like you can modify like the middle part, that connections, like how it's connected is also a connection, and then it just gets out of control. Okay, but start with the basics, get a feel for it, keep it very simple, just A, B, yeah, and A, B, right? A does not equal B does not equal A, B does not equal A, B does not equal, or A, B does not equal A or B, right? Keep the things separate, keep it very simple, and you'll get it in no time, right? Apply it to anything. But that's my, that's the video on combinations, right? But yeah, I'll see you guys next time for transposition, okay? Peace.